First of all, I gotta ask, in regards to the Live from Mars album, that is one of the hippest covers I've seen in a long
Oh,
time.
thank you. I'm just a big fan of Mystery Science Theater, and Kevin Murphy was kind enough to give us permission to use it and write the liner notes.
Wow.
Yeah.
And
So, yeah, they used my name in one of their shows, and I was freaked out because I loved their show, and so we got in touch.
the Live from Mars, was that their idea or yours? Or
It was my idea because the whole album is sort of pieced together digitally, and that was my original concept, was to make it like something that was intercepted on a digital satellite dish or something coming from outer space. But that concept didn't quite get through in the liner notes. But it is a digital, pieced together thing from a lot of DAT tapes from around the country. And also, we didn't know where we'd recorded a lot of these tapes because we didn't label them. They were just something we stuck in the machine at the board to keep people from making a bootleg. So we had a drawer full of them. And I listened to a couple of them. I said, "Hey, these aren't bad." So I got a digital editor and cut them together.
wow, because it comes across very seamless. It does sound like it was taken from a single performance.
Yeah, it's engineered that way, but it's not. It's a lot of different performances.
What are the new challenges for you?
Challenges. Well, first of all, I love doing what I'm doing, going out solo. So I'm going to just continue to do that, like Andre Segovia, who was in his 90s when he was booked at Carnegie Hall, and he died doing what he loved.
Yeah.
And I guess the new challenge would be to get some commercial product out into the marketplace with all the competition and the age discrimination and things that are going on in the business.
Mm-hmm.
That's a challenge, and I'm going to meet it by doing another rock CD.
What is the perspective of the rock scene in America from someone who's in it? Because I only know as a fan, and yet I keep reading or seeing pieces on people like Tina Turner, who has moved to France just because she was a bit put off by the American music scene and whatnot.
No, I'm not sure she moved to France for that reason. Did you get that definitely from that?
Well, let's put it this way. That's what the spin that the news piece put on it.
Because, she just found a really cool piece of real estate there. I've been to that area, and it's really beautiful. It's like the real Malibu.
Oh.
It's just she's up on a hill and overlooking the Mediterranean, and gorgeous there. In fact, we were just there a couple of weeks ago. We went to Monaco, and it's a beautiful part of the world, so I wouldn't put anybody down for living there. Maybe I would do that myself.
Right, no, definitely not a bad decision as far as it goes.
The perspective on the rock scene, well, it's like now we got Jumper and Matchbox 20 and Sean Mullins and Eagle Eye and Goo Goo Dolls and Jewel and they're out there and they're doing good music, and it's another world, and I'm all for it. I think it's cool.
Mm-hmm. And speaking of Jewel and that kind of return of folk music to the limelight, what has kept you coming back to folk music? Because it seems that that's always been your home base, whereas you've kind of darted out more into rock here and there, but you always come back to folk.
Yeah, I've just always loved folk. I love the tradition of it. I love the stories that the songs tell and the melodies. They're wonderful melodies, and it's a real love of mine. In fact, I've got a thing on the internet called the Folk Den.
Right.
Have you seen that?
Yes.
Okay. So you can relate to that.
Yes, definitely.
That's folkden.com if anybody wants to get there.
With the creation of folk music and all the tradition that goes from it, tell me about the song May the Road Rise, just because that's very much seems steeped in tradition.
It's an old Irish blessing, and it's something that my agent sent me from Ireland, and I was playing around with my guitar one day, and I looked at it and said, "Hey, I wonder if anybody's ever put a tune to that." Well, it turned out that someone else had, but I put a different tune to it, and my wife and I cooked up some verses to it. So it's just a song that came about in a very natural way.
And it just seems, it goes at the tail end of your album, and it just seems like the natural ending song. Not quite a goodbye, but more like a see you later kind of tune, and it has that warmth about it.
Yeah, it's kind of a warm way to bid somebody a pleasant journey.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Now, on the flip side from that, maybe a little bit more cynical point of view, tell me about the song King of the Hill, which to me, I don't know, just because of the time it came out, to me it meant like kind of the end of the whole '80s trip that everyone was on.
Well, see, that's the thing about explaining songs. You know, you got a meaning from it that I didn't intend, but that's great because, you know, a song should be something like a multifaceted jewel that you look at from a lot of different ways and get different meanings out of.
Mm-hmm.
If I explain exactly what I was thinking at the time I wrote it, it would kind of put it into two dimensions, you know.
Yeah.
I don't really want to explain it.
Okay.
But you know, it's a comment on the business.
Mm-hmm. That's fine. And from that perspective, just because you've written so many songs that people have been able to write so much about, what's it like creating a piece of music and then having so many varied opinions and so many different insights into the various lines?
Well, it's amusing from my perspective. Because I know what I meant when I was doing it, and then you see all these different explanations and speculation, and it's just kind of fun to see what people think.
I once read that when you first heard Tom Petty's American Girl, that you thought it was one of your own tunes. Is that true?
Not seriously. I was kidding my manager who played it for me. I knew it wasn't me, but I thought at the same time it was something that sounded so much like it could have been something I'd recorded that I just said that as a joke.
Mm-hmm.
So we got to meet Tom the next day and became friends with him.
Wow. And does knowing that your music and your writing has had such an effect on other musicians, does that change your perspective? Does it change you?
I don't really think about it.
Mm-hmm.
People tell it to me all the time. You know, they ask me what I think about these different. You know, they ask me to name people who have been influenced by my music, and I really don't have a list of them.
Yeah.
So I don't think about it. I just do what I do, and that's great that people like what I've done.
Now, for the whole idea of songwriting, just because you've created so many tunes, do you allow inspiration to write, or do you actually plan and sit down to write at some point?
I usually sit down and write when I've got a project to do, like I'll be doing a CD. So I say I'm going to need a bunch of songs, and then I'll take the best of them, and I sit down and work at it like you do, like you would if you were going to write a book or like write a magazine article or something. Very seldom does a song just hit me out of the blue, and I write it down. Although that does happen. Mm-hmm. But mostly it happens when it's like, who was it? Einstein said that whatever it is 99% perspiration, you know?
You're right, yeah, exactly.
1% inspiration, and that's basically how it is. You have to work at it. Mm-hmm.
And getting back to your comment about Andre Segovia, do you remember a comedian by the name of Dick Shawn?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Just because he died in a similar fashion. He was nowhere near quite as old, but he was on stage at the time doing a performance and collapsed. And, of course, the bizarre irony in the situation was that when he collapsed, it actually fit the joke, and so people thought he was kidding.
Yeah, it was at a college, as I recall.
Yeah, I believe so.
Lunch gig, yeah.
And,
well, that's a good way to go, doing something you love. I don't think Segovia actually died on stage, but he died the month that he was booked at Carnegie Hall. Mm-hmm. I think Tiny Tim collapsed on stage, but he didn't die right away. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's kind of maudlin, but
yeah.
Anyway, that would be a good way to go. Die with your boots on.
You're right. Yeah, exactly. And it has kind of a romantic flair about it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm not really sacrificing yourself to the art, but
Well, you're going out doing what you love. That's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. And in that same respect, your own determination and keeping on, and the fact that when you do perform solo, you really perform solo. There's lots of guys who go solo and then they show up on stage with like 15 people behind them.
Yeah.
But what's the feel of being completely alone out there on stage?
Oh, at first there's a great deal of trepidation that goes with it, and then you manage to get over that. It takes a while. It took me actually years to get over that, but I did, and now I have a really wonderful time out there. My inspiration was Pete Seeger, who had been in the Weavers, and then for, I don't know, whatever, I think it was McCarthy hearings, they got blacklisted, so he went out solo. Mm-hmm. And I was skeptical. I said, what's he going to be like? I love the Weavers. How is he going to pull it off by himself? And I went to this concert of his, and there were several thousand people there. and they went nuts, and he was getting them to sing different parts, and he was up there with all the magnetism and stage presence of anybody I'd ever seen, and I went, I want to do that. And basically, that was in 1959. I've been trying to do that ever since, and I find myself in these group situations, where things would kind of form around what I was doing.
Right.
But I'm really doing what I want to be doing now, and so there it is.
Wow, that's great. And it's not just the fact that you sing out there solo, but you've become an accomplished storyteller.
I had to learn to talk. When I first started performing solo, I couldn't talk. In the Byrds, if you look at any of the old videos, the most you'd get out of me was "thank you" and "this next song is blah blah blah," and I was just basically shy. I'm a shy person, and I had to teach myself how to talk to people.
Wow.
How to be relaxed enough to think of something anecdotal and convey that without soaking up on it. And it took a long time to really be able to do that.
Mm-hmm. Do you have like a different persona on stage than you do off stage? Because I know for some artists, that's what happens. They get on, they get behind the mic, and suddenly this whole other persona takes over.
No, actually, what you see on stage is a real me.
Mm-hmm.
Years it wasn't, because I was just too nervous to come through. But if you knew me off stage, you would have thought, that I was kind of fun-loving and vivacious, and I would tell stories to friends. Mm-hmm. But on stage, I couldn't do that. Well, now I can. So I'm my real self on stage.
And in terms of rock and roll and the fame associated, from a musician's perspective and from an inductee's perspective, what does the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame mean?
It's an honor. It's like another validation in your career. It's like getting a Grammy or an Oscar or something. Mm-hmm. And it makes you feel good that some people or an organization has appreciated your work enough to give you that.
There have always been constant arguments in relating to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame about whether or not to televise the induction ceremonies.
I think they should.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think they should. I think it ought to play on, PBS or VH1 or something like that. Mm-hmm. It'd just be a lot of fun for everybody, because I know these jam sessions are great fun, and if we can watch the Oscars,
yeah,
this would be more fun, I think.
Yeah, no, I always tried to seek them out, and it's been difficult to find because, it varies from year to year whether or not they get televised. And then you have other artists who think that they shouldn't be televised, that they should just be kind of an in-industry thing that should just be kept away from the public.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see any advantage to it.
Mm-hmm. And
certainly it wouldn't hurt it artistically if it were televised. It would probably spiff it up a little bit.
And what keeps it fun for all these years? Because anyone, it doesn't even matter if it's a musician, but any job, to be able to keep it interesting and fun for as long as you have, what's the key to that?
I think it's the people, the audiences. They make it fun. If they weren't into it, if first of all, if nobody showed up, and then if people showed up and they weren't appreciating it or getting into it, it wouldn't be fun. Mm-hmm. And so it's just definitely about the people.
And then, do you prefer the smaller, more intimate clubs for that reason?
No, I don't like clubs. In fact, I've cut them all out entirely.
Really?
I don't do clubs anymore. I do theaters and festivals and stuff like that. But no more clubs.
How come?
Well, clubs, are first of all, people who like what I do don't like to go to clubs anymore. Too old, they've got kids and they've got a car and they don't want to park it in the part of town where the club is. They'd much rather see you in a nice venue.
Yes. And
I could get more people to come out to see me in a theater or at a festival than I can in a club. Mm-hmm. And in clubs, people drink too much and they fight and a lot of smoke, and it's not a real pleasant environment for the artists or the people who come to see it. Mm-hmm. So I just prefer to do venues that are nicer for my audience.